Hi, this is Tony Byrne. Welcome to this week's show, Money Demystified, the show to make your money grow. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. here on Spectrum on Air, the colour of radio. What we're going to talk about today is all things property with our special guest, Neil Briggs. Hello, Neil. Welcome to today's show.
Hi.
This is Neil Briggs. I'd like to introduce as our special guest today. Neil is a leading Milton Keynes property professional, and he is involved in various aspects of property, which I think will make it a very interesting show today. So, Neil, can you tell me a bit about your background, your growing up, your family, education, what kind of lifestyle you had when you were growing up?
Yeah, so traditional, I suppose, middle-class background in essence. I was born in Hillingdon back in 1977, so revealing all my secrets here. We kind of moved from Uxbridge when I was 3 to Newport Pagnell, so I've been pretty much in Milton Keynes for the majority of my life. Went to local school there, local primary school and senior school. Very standard upbringing, mum and dad still together, so that was a bit of a abnormal in the days. My brother and I were a bit jealous of all the other kids that were getting double Christmas presents, but obviously looking back now, it was quite a good thing that a good stable home that my parents brought me up in the right way, so to speak. Okay, and how did you get on at school? Did you enjoy it? Did you thrive? Did you go on to further education, or did you? Not really. I mean, school was school. I think that you don't realise until you leave school actually how kind of cushy it was, to be quite frank. But I left school with 6 GCSEs. I did a year of A-levels and just dropped out after a year. So I did A-level maths and physics for a year, and then I wasn't hanging around with the right crowd, so to speak. So I was missing more lessons I was going in, and then doing overtime at my part-time job at Tesco's. I like money, and it turned out in the second year I had to do double lessons because I missed so many in the first, and I just thought it wasn't for me, so I went into full-time employment and become a baker.
Ah, interesting. Well, I think like a lot of people on this show, because we tend to interview a lot of business people, that it's not unusual to not really enjoy education and to drop out. And in fact, when you think about it, the greatest entrepreneurs in the world are dropouts from university, aren't they? So it just doesn't seem to marry with them. But so you're a baker. That's an interesting choice of career. And how did that work out?
Well, I actually started at the Tesco's in Wolverton on the checkouts and did all different facets of the job. And then they put me in the bakery, and then I ended up working full-time in the bakery. I got my first mortgage when I was 18 because my mum and dad were like, well, I was out partying quite a lot. And they're like, we don't like the way you're living, so you can't live here. If you want to live like that, you have to move out. And it's like you can either look to go and rent a property, or you look to go and buy a property. So I thought, well, it was cheaper actually buying a property at the time than it was renting. And I've got a one-bedroom masonette on my £800 a month income from the bakery at Newport Pagnell. So I bought that at a very, very good price at 18. So that kind of stepped me in the right stead. And
Wow.
I never really knew what I wanted to do until I started doing it. So my kind of early career was working at Tesco's, very low-grade job in the bakery. I left there, then went to a bread factory, which was slightly different because obviously I thought I was chasing the salary, and they kind of doing shift work. It just wasn't for me, so I only did that for a couple of months, and I did a variety of jobs because I had a mortgage to pay. I was just flitting between temporary work, warehouse work, so kind of did lots of different jobs, whatever I could do for agencies. It was really difficult to get a full-time job at the time. So I think we were still in a recession back in the late 90s. So I did lots of different things, and ended up getting a job in a warehouse, which I did that for a couple of years. And then I got a job after I left the warehouse in an office job. Exported fume extraction equipment for a couple of years across Europe, and then went into corrugated packaging for a couple of years as well. So sort of a bit more a sales role, and I did that for a while, and then just more by luck than anything else, I ended up getting a trainee mortgage broker job back in 2001, and that's kind of where my property journey really started. And the guy that interviewed me was quite keen that I put on there because I had a mortgage at 18, and it's like, we'll get you in with no experience. It was more by luck that actually I got that job, and then I turned out to be one of the leading mortgage brokers at the firm through Countrywide. So I'd always win awards and stuff. So that's kind of found what I wanted to do, and just kind of never looked back really from there.
So you kind of, from the two previous jobs before your job as a mortgage broker, you got the flavour for sales. You seem to enjoy the sales side. Is that?
Yeah, I've always been good at sales. Doing it the right way, and it was quite enjoyable. But then I was working in the packaging company for a couple of years, and there was a guy that had been there for 20 years, and he knew everything about cardboard, and I just thought, I don't want that to be me. I think I need to get in there because I could look at a box, and I could still to this day I could look at a box and tell you what grade shape it was, and the grade of corrugated and stuff. But it's like, I don't want to be, I don't want that to be in my life. I need a new career path. So they quite often used to joke that I used to sell houses for the homeless when I worked at the corrugated company, but they're the real housing.
So it sounds that because you bought a property at such a young age, I think that's pretty amazing that you did that. That it probably indicates that was your path, but you probably didn't realise until you had those two type of sales jobs before you got into mortgage broking, and suddenly you stumbled into what you really wanted to do. And I think that's not an unusual pattern. I was the same. I did a lot of dead-end jobs after doing A-levels at school, and no one sets out to be a mortgage broker or a financial advisor, do they, when they're at school? I think I wanted to be a footballer, professional footballer.
Yeah. When you're a kid, all you want to be is like a fireman or a policeman or a soldier, because you don't really understand. So until you're out there in the real world, and a lot of it's getting the right opportunity, being in the right place at the right time, and people like me to get that opportunity and never look back.
Yeah. So when did you start your first business, and was that inspired your?
So I was mortgage broking for a while, flitted between civil corporate estate agents, get headhunted, and then I went self-employed. And at heart had a self-employed model, and I was working in Milton Keynes at the time, and really good money, doing a tremendous amount of mortgages there, and then they changed the way they did it. They moved me from Milton Keynes to Northampton, and it's like, I don't want to be driving to Northampton every day, and had the idea to set up my own estate agency. So Inspired was born. At that point, initially had a first business partner that was going to put in half the money and sort of backed out on the 11th hour, and then my mum and dad just said, look, we'll go halves with you. So they own half the business, and we kind of never looked back from there. And that was 2010. So and we opened probably in the recession at the time, when a couple of years after the market crash, and people were saying you're mad opening a business in that market, but if you can make it in that market, you can make it in any market, was my mentality.
Can I ask you, Neil, as this is this program's called Money Demystified, can you recall what was your first money lesson in life?
Well, that's a good one. I think getting the mortgage at 18 was probably a big wake-up call. If I look back now with all the knowledge I know and some of the decisions I made, they weren't great. I didn't go for the best mortgage products. I couldn't understand that you could change your mortgage every few years. That wasn't explained to me, and I went for the variable mortgage, just to say, well, if I'm going to pay at the end, I may as well get used to paying it now, and I've got cash back with it. That made me grow up quite quick at 18, having having a big responsibility of paying for your own house, and I think that was probably my first proper money lesson.
That's really good, really good. And what is it you particularly like about the property business?
I am really passionate about property. I do enjoy it from all the facets. I enjoy helping people raise the funds. So, helping people arrange the mortgages, and that part of the job, people are so grateful because they're worried about it. They don't understand if they're going to get the mortgage, etc., etc. So, the mortgage advice part, I really, really enjoy. I also do developments. I really enjoy turning something horrible into something nice. I have a real passion for converting buildings and making nice space for the rental market. That's kind of the key thing.
Because the thing with property market, I've got some properties myself, and what I've discovered is that it can be very creative as well, can't it? And it can be quite satisfying when, like you said, you can turn a wreck of a property into a fantastic looking property, and you're rewarded handsomely for it. But you put the effort in, and you've discovered it and bought it, and It's quite exciting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I've been buying and selling properties over the previous years, but I've kind of moved again, it evolves and progresses, and I've now gone from buying sort of 1-bed flats, making 2-bed flats, to do much bigger conversions and buildings. So I've done a few ground up developments, but my sort of sweet spot has been buying mixed use commercial buildings now with shops on the ground floor and space above, and creating flats above.
Yes, that's clever.
Yeah, working with other people's money, so I have investors put into the deals and they get a 10% return.
Yes.
Crowdfund it, buy the building, build it out. After 12 months, I refinance it, pay everyone back, I keep the asset, and then we move on to the next project. So that's kind of been my sweet spot over recent years.
Really good. Using crowdfunding. I've used peer-to-peer lending for business before. I haven't yet used crowdfunding. Perhaps you could just explain to our listeners briefly what that means.
I don't directly do it with a platform. So what I do, obviously, being in my position, I own an estate agency. I've got a lot of people that know what I do. So if private individuals want to get a better return on their money, I will have a development project and I'll say, look, this is what I'm looking to buy. This is what I'm looking to raise. So I'll buy with a bridging loan or a development loan, which will do 70% of the project, so to speak. So I raise the other 30% with other people's money. So I'll do a loan agreement directly with them, backed up with a personal guarantee. Then they'll give me the deposit to buy the property and the first bit to do the build. It sits within about 12 months. Once the project is finished, we then exit on a commercial mortgage.
Okay. So when I think of crowdfunding, I think of it as being online, raising funds.
There are online platforms, so I've not needed to go through that.
That's not what you do. That's not what you do.
No, I work directly with people, my direct contacts. So the platforms take a bigger part of it, and it's a bit less personal. So I like to deal a bit more personal directly.
Yes.
With people that...
Great. So that's another money lesson you've taught us, how to use other people's money. So what we're going to do now in the middle part of the show is ask more about where you are today. So what I'd like to know is a bit more about what you do today, because you've got quite a varied interest in property. You're not just running an estate agency, are you? You do quite a few things.
So effectively, I've kind of built a ecosystem of businesses. So my business interests, I have Octagon Financial Advice Limited, is my mortgage brokerage. Got Inspired Sales and Lettings, which is a sales and lettings agency with offices in Milton Keynes and Rushden. I acquired MK Property last year. So again, that's a sales and lettings agency in Milton Keynes. I've got a building company, MB Property Renovations, plus I do all-wide development. So we can help you find a property, we can help you fund the property, we can help you fix a property, and we help you flog a property. So we can help you all through the stages for every step of the way with your property journey, if that's what you want to do. I also host a monthly property networking meeting, which is the Progressive Property Network meeting. First Thursday, it was actually last night, first Thursday of the month. So where with local investors and local property entrepreneurs come, and we sort of network, and we have guest speakers. So I've kind of built a system that we can help you with every single part of it. So the building company pretty much does most of the work on my own projects. So with the development side, I'm kind of at a stage now where I'm pipelining deals, trying to buy stuff. Subject to planning. We have the build team working on a project which might take 12 months, and then it might take 6 months to get the next one in legals, and kind of moving them on from there. But I've got quite a few buildings I own now, and I'm in a very comfortable position, but I do enjoy what I do, so I'm still throwing myself in there to putting the deals together.
It sounds very varied, and it sounds like you've very much got a one-stop shop, which I think it's fair to say is fairly unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't put ourselves in any kind of niche, and I've kind of moved up to the senior management level in a lot of the businesses where I'm getting the teams to run the businesses for me. So again, I've done a lot of training, a lot of coaching, and sometimes people think they're a business owner, but they've just got a busy job that they're running for themselves. And to actually truly be a business owner, your business is from without you. So I've got that in a couple of the businesses that I've owned. Some I'm still growing. So you kind of get to the position where you've got the guys reporting to you, and you don't need to be in the office day in, day out. But it's taken years to get there. So it's not it takes 10 years to be an overnight success, doesn't it?
Well, it's a good lesson to the listeners, because as you say, as portrayed in this book by Michael Gerber, The E-Myth, you may have read, that most people have this, what did he call it? entrepreneurial seizure, he calls it. So you can be an accountant one minute and think you can run an accountancy practice the next. Not necessarily. You may just be a good accountant and a terrible business manager. So I think you've shown some good lessons there to the listeners, that it's important to train your team to run the business for you. That's the ultimate in delegation. I think that's a really good money lesson, because you can really scale your business now, can't you? Properly.
Yeah.
It's really good. So, Neil, is there such a thing as a typical day for you?
Not really. No, it's every day is completely different. So some things are constant. I have a team meeting with some of the guys every morning, so I set up their work for the day. Some days I'm doing mortgage training with the mortgage brokers. Some days I'm checking on sites. Some days I'm looking at new sites. I'm even meeting with local town councils and planning meetings. So, every day is varied. It depends on where I am and what. I kind of don't know what I'm doing sort of one week to the next, really, sometimes.
It does sound more interesting than varied, because I certainly, my personality is like that. I don't like doing the same thing day in, day out. It just makes it more stimulating, doesn't it, if you've got a variety of interests?
Absolutely.
So that's really good. So, Neil, you got all these businesses. You've been a success. You've probably dismayed your teachers, but you've proven them all wrong, haven't you? And you really enjoy what you do. Neil, tell me, do you have any time for yourself? What do you do in your spare time? Do you have any?
Yeah, I don't have as much of lately, but I'm a quite keen runner. So
that's good. Same as me.
I'm in the 100 marathon club, so I run over 100 marathons.
Whoa!
Which I've done a couple of challenges. I do like a challenge every now and then. So I did 52 marathons in 52 weeks.
Wow!
Before COVID, I ran 10 marathons in 10 days. And I was training for a 100-mile race, which got cancelled twice with COVID, so I'm a bit off the boil at the moment because I've got an injury, but I'm getting back into getting some mileage done, because I've got a half marathon next weekend, and I'm hopefully getting the mileage back up to be marathon fit.
Brilliant. Really great news. That was my target, to 100 marathons. I only got to 46, and then plantar fasciitis took over, and I can't really run as much as I used to, which is a shame, because I do... what's the word? I do understand exactly where you're coming from. What appeals to you about long distance running?
I think it's almost like my meditation. So, with all the bits I've got on the go, just to put my shoes on and just go for a run, no headphones, just out there, it clears my head. It gives me a nice. It's probably the healthiest addiction I've ever had, but it's good for me. And once you're in the community and you're sort of out running the races regularly, you kind of have your running family as well. So the people you see week in, week out at the races. So I popped down and saw a couple of events where I haven't been running, just to say hello to your friends that you haven't seen for a little while. So there's a good community spirit on the marathon circuit. So it's good fun, and I enjoy it. It's good for my mental health and my physical health.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. I think it's very underrated. I once read a book, Born to Run, and I genuinely think that human beings were born to run. We're not born to sit down like we're doing now in front of a screen. That's not good for you. So I totally agree with you. I feel fantastic after a run. It's such a good thing. It's stressing you as well, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, well, running is one of those funny things. If you haven't run for a little while, the first bit does feel terrible. It's like, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? I don't even like running. You have this internal dialogue, and then after a couple of miles, I got into it. You kind of warmed up a little bit, and then you get the middle part when you're feeling great, and you feel like you go forever, and then I need to get back, and then it's kind of when you finish, you're feeling the euphoria is great. So I do love the running. I think everyone should be.
It's those endorphins, isn't it? I always say to people, it's the cheapest drug addiction you'll ever have, because it's a natural drug, endorphins, that you get from running, and it's such a brilliant de-stressor. I just think it's so good on many levels, and I like the idea that you don't have headphones. I get dismayed at seeing people running with headphones, because to me it defeats the whole object. The whole point is a meditative
I used
experience.
to run with headphones. When I first started running, I used to have music. I used to have this. I used to have to eat certain time before and have to do this. And now I can just get up and just go. I don't even need to eat, because I do intermittent fasting every day. So I kind of don't eat till the afternoon. So I'm used to running on empty. I'll drink a lot of black coffee. But I've got a few things I do want to do. I still do want to try and get a 100-mile race done. I want to do an Ironman. I want to do a sub-4 marathon, so I've set myself a few targets, but I've been sort of overwhelmed with my workload of this last year. So something had to give, and it's kind of been my running, which is coinciding my injury with everything I've had on the go. So I'm kind of going to not take on as many projects over the next year or so to just try and make sure I've been work for the last few years now. I need to live a little.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to get your balance right. But it's a very tricky one when you love what you do.
Yeah, very true.
Now, can I just ask you one thing while we're on the subject of business? What are your top money tips for running a business?
I think it all depends on what the business is. Ultimately, cash flow can kill or make you a king. So it's very difficult running a business. Everyone has ups and downs. If you can't take the stress, then I wouldn't necessarily do it. So it's not going to be for everyone. That's why there are employees as well as obviously business owners. But just write your business plan, check it, and then double check it and treble check it. Be very careful on what you're agreeing to spend out on. We wasted loads of money on advertising when we first started, so that's a lesson that we learned, that this business in selling property is a people business. People buy from people. It doesn't really matter that you're putting out newspaper ads on a weekly basis. Didn't make a blind bit of difference. It's all about building a relationship and getting that person that wants to sell their house to trust you to list it and then move on from there. So it's just,
I like what you said about cash flow is king, because you probably agree with this saying. I'm sure you've heard it before. Turnover for vanity, profit for sanity, cash for reality. And I totally agree with you on that one. I think we all lose track. We get flattered by boasting about turnover. Who cares about turnover if you're losing money?
Absolutely.
It's irrelevant, isn't it? So I think you're spot on there. I totally agree with you on that one. So how do you envisage your life over the next 10 years and beyond? Can you envisage that?
Yeah, I can. I've got a vision where I want to be sort of a bit more hands off on all the businesses. So I'm getting them into a place where they're all been systemized. So it's not going to be an overnight thing, but I'm going to be senior management of effectively all the businesses. I might look at maybe acquiring another estate agent or letting agent just to help with the bulk of rental properties that we manage. I think we're about 450 at the moment, so we're looking to get that a bit higher than that. That would be great. That's obviously building my own personal portfolio, but I need to get my work-life balance a bit more in the right mix, because at the moment it's just been working. But so I can see myself still being involved day to day, just picking the bits that I enjoy, and then obviously having the senior manager reporting to me, and then running the businesses on that basis.
Yes. But in terms of your life, do you think you'll carry on working indefinitely, or do you plan to retire?
I often say I'll never retire because I love what I do. And we had a speaker at my event last night who's talking about finding your purpose and finding your passion. And my job was at the estate agent. I was the mortgage broker at the estate agent. That's why I set up my business. And then I started doing property development as a sideline. And it's kind of a hobby that now pays me really well, because I have a passion for turning a horrible unit into something really nice, and a good rental unit that pays me well. So effectively now my biggest cash flow in turnover personal assets are my properties, which were a hobby, which pay me well. So I don't think I'll ever stop doing that.
No.
Whether I'll keep doing the volume that I've done over the last couple of years, I don't know, because obviously it is quite stressful running jobs, running sites, funding, finance, refinance, and maybe I'll do sort of 1 or 2 big projects a year rather than 5 or 6 smaller lights, which I've been doing over recent years.
So you don't envisage retiring, although of course we all one day may have to accept, physically or mentally we can't do it anymore. But I do like the idea of carrying on your passion and not having a retirement date in sight. I think that makes a lot of sense, because people who follow their passion seem to live a long time. If you look at David Attenborough, who's 95, I say to people, is he working, or is he just following his passions? I think he's following his passions. And what a great life to be paid to do what you love.
Yeah,
absolutely. Why would you ever give it up? It's not work, is it?
No, that's right.
And
my partner, she often says to me, I see you skipping out the door, going to work in the morning because you love what you do. I wish I had that. And I'm like, well, if you don't like it, maybe change it. So I think everyone can get to that. And then, if you are become the top of your field, and you're only going to become the top of your field if you're passionate about what you do, then you do get remunerated for that. And obviously, depending on what it is, will depend on the level of remuneration. You know, obviously, you look at professional footballers, they're at the top of their field doing something they love, they get paid a lot of money because that's a lot of money in that sector. So,
yes,
you know, depending on what your passion is, you know, it depends on what you're going to get, how much you're going to get paid for doing it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Now, if it's possible, this is quite a difficult question for you to answer probably, but what do you think is the future of property investing as far as you can imagine it?
Yeah, it's never going to stop, because obviously we've got a lack of properties, a lack of rental properties, a lack of sales properties, but we've got a national housing crisis. And until, you know, the level of new homes come to market meets the demand, the prices will still rise. But then the question of how much they will rise. Now, I've been in the industry a long time. I've seen, you know, when I first got into the property industry, house prices were going up £10,000 a week. You know, a 3-bedroom house was 60,000. 2 weeks later, it was 80,000, and people were ditching buyers and moving them on. And, you know, I don't think we're ever going to get back to that. No. Rates are a lot higher. You know, if you look at the house price movements, it has been fairly static. And then we had the crash in 2007, 2008. But my experience as a mortgage broker at the time, we were arranging 125% mortgages, you know, Northern Rock, Express, we did next day remortgages. There was no hurt money in it for people. So whereas since then, you know, the minimum deposit you've had to put in has been 5%. It was 10% for a long time. So people have put a lot of their hard-earned money into their own assets, into their own properties, and they're loath to let that go. So the repossession levels have dropped, and the banks have been a lot more cautious since then. So I can't really see a crash or any kind of correction. If interest rates rise, then it's going to slow the market. But, you know, the people with their money in the bank have been buying properties because, you know, if you've got £100,000 in the bank, it's doing you no good, because you're barely going to get 1% savings rate with inflation knocking on the door at 5%. Your money's effectively going down. So again, it's trying to educate people with their money, and people have been aware of that. And, you know, you look at a lot of the big players are coming in the build to rent sector. There's Legal and General, there's Lloyd's Bank. They're actually starting to build assets themselves to rent out. So I think it is a very strong sector, because we are on an island as well. You know, rates will rise, prices will stabilise, but there is just a lack of property coming to the market nationally, which is why the prices have been risen.
What I was going to ask you is, how much of a threat is government regulation and taxation, and in particular for the amateur landlord?
It is a big thing. They're bringing in new laws for energy performance certificates over the next few years. So you need to raise the level of your property. You've got to spend, I think they're raising the limit to £10,000 now to do improvements as a landlord. So it's good and it is bad. So the problem is that the good people like me and you that will look after our properties and do what's right by the tenant, will follow the rules, will do the things, will cost us money. And then there's always going to be the rogues that just won't listen, and they don't listen now. So, you know, I think they should focus a bit more on enforcement rather than actual regulation.
Yes, but don't you find it a bit worrying, the government increasing taxation effectively on properties and removing tax reliefs? It's a trend, and isn't that leading to a housing crisis, because more and more amateur buy-to-let owners are selling their properties, and then there's less of a pool of rental properties. I've heard that Milton Keynes currently, there's a massive shortage of rental properties, for example. Yeah, I'm told anecdotally.
There's a massive shortage of sale property as well. There's just, you cannot get enough stock at the moment. And I agree that the government have not made it easy for the buy-to-let landlord by taxing on turnover rather than profit. So, you know, people were buying, especially the higher rate taxpayers, you know, they're buying properties in their own personal name, and the government have done it to try and get people to buy it in limited companies. But that's added cost, added regulation, added red tape with the lending, etc. So they are making it difficult. So the entry level was a lot easier before, but I think it is still a good investment vehicle. I think property is a long-term investment strategy, and it's always done me very well, and I try and encourage as many people as I can to invest in property one way or another, because it's my pension pot, so to speak. Well,
it's also it's famously known as passive income. I'm not sure it always is passive income, because a lot of people who build portfolios end up creating what like you said, a well-paid job for themselves, because they end up doing all the maintenance themselves. and everything else. And you think, well, actually, you've just created a job for yourself. That's not passive income.
No.
But they probably need to use a company like yours to do the property management. Then they've got passive income, haven't they, Neil?
Yeah, that's right. And again, you pay for what you get. Ultimately, we see quite a lot of landlords that have self-managed over the years, and they've not done this, they've not done that. They've left themselves liable to be open for some sort of claim of any sort, and they've maybe not done a rent increase for 5 years, which hasn't done them any good. It's not done the tenant any good, because everything goes up in price. If the tenant hasn't had a rent increase for 5 years, they're going to find it more difficult to find another property if they do want to move. So they kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit. So
yes,
yeah,
that's true. So I was going to ask you, what are your future aspirations? But I think in many respects you've already answered that one. So is there anything else you'd like to achieve in the future? Not just business related. I know you did touch on this idea of having more of a work-life balance, but that's always going to be a tricky one to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a few things I want to do on my bucket list. I mean, my kids are still quite young. We've got 4 children in our household. My 2 boys are 7 and 8 at the moment, 8 and 9. So I want to try and spend a bit more time with the family and sort of growing out with them a little bit. And it's I've got a few things I do want to do personally. Like I say, do a bit more travelling, a bit more relaxing, and try and get myself an Ironman completed. That's probably a big thing I want to do before I get too old.
Really good. Yeah. Do you have a target for how many marathons? Now you've reached 100. Do you want to get to 200, 300? Do you have a...
No, I want to try and do a 100-mile race. Is a big thing. I do want to get to that. That took me such a long time to get fit for that level. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to fit the training in for that again. So I want to try and get a sub-4 marathon. So I want to run a marathon under 4 hours. That's a target I want to do.
Yeah, I used to find with marathons, I always used to struggle in the second half, especially when you hit the wall. I would do quite well up to that. And I never got under 4 hours. I think the fastest was 4:10, I think. But
I'm 4:11 at Milton Keynes a few years ago, Milton Keynes Marathon. So.
I'm sure you can get under 4. Yeah, you're still young enough to do it. I'm sure you will.
got to train. That's what I need to do. Just need to get the training.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you don't do the training, then you're up against it, aren't you?
Yeah.
But there's only so many hours in the day. So it's still, I find it very inspiring what you've done with marathon running. I do know personally some runners that have run hundreds of marathons. In fact, one chap I once come across had run over 1,000 marathons.
Nick,
I can't remember his name. I haven't seen him for a few years because I don't run marathons anymore. But that was just remarkable. When I asked him how many marathons he'd done, he said 57. I said, 57? That's a lot of marathons to run in your life. He said, no, that's in the last year. Quite amazing. But yeah, I love marathon running too, because it's a great test of your of your determination, your persistence.
Yeah, it's an achievement, isn't it? Yeah, it's a sense of achievement when you complete that level of mileage.
Feeling to get over that line. So that's really an interesting bit you've added to today's show, which I wasn't expecting. So that's really great news. So Neil, sadly, it comes to the end of this show. It's gone by in an absolute whiz. I found it absolutely fascinating, and I love talking to entrepreneurs like you who follow their passions. I think that's a great lesson to our listeners, and I think you've given us some brilliant money lessons along the way. Time for this week's risk warning. This show is for general information only and is not intended to be individual advice. You are recommended to seek competent professional advice before taking any action.